Okay. Good afternoon, evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We have quorum now. I think Commissioner Dicos is at least still listening to this meeting. Do we need him to have his camera on to be official? Okay. Commissioner Dicos, if you can put your camera on, that would be swell, but safely. You don't need to stare at your camera, but you do need to have it on. And
yeah, sorry, I'm running late. I'll be there in 15 minutes. My bad.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yes, just be listening in, but keep watching the road. Thank you. Appreciate you making this work. Okay, so this is an exciting time for us. We are starting our review of the South Maui Community Plan. There's been many, many, many months and hours of work put into this, which is very much appreciated, and we will have many more hours put into this. So this hopefully should come out to be a very strong and robust plan that sets up South Maui for the next 20 years. So with that, Deputy.
Yes, we're going to do roll call. Andrea Kealoha.
Hi, I'm here in my office in Paia, and it's nighttime, so my family is home. I'm not alone. They may be popping in and out.
Could you name any adults that are in the room with you? If there are any, you do not have to name
No
any
adults
members.
in the room with me.
Thank you. Mark Dicos. We can return to him, Chair. Commissioner Ashley Lindsay.
Hello, Mike Kako. Happy to be here today. Nice to see all of your faces in real life.
Commissioner Mel Hippolito. Excused. Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Thompson.
Aloha and good afternoon, all.
Chair there.
Yes, aloha kako. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Chair. And we're going to return to Mark Dicos. If you could confirm that you can hear us and say hello. Thank you. Prior to opening public testimony, Chair, we would like to proceed with the presentation at the appropriate time.
Perfect. Yes, let's have the presentation from the department, and then we'll have public testimony, and then we'll go into commission questions.
Aloha, Chair and Commissioners. We are excited to be kicking off your review of the South Maui Community Plan. A few months ago, we came before you to give you an update on the community planning process, and today we begin your review of the draft plan. I have a very brief presentation to remind you of the phases of the community plan update process and give you a quick orientation to the draft plan. Then you will begin reviewing sections of the draft plan that are on today's agenda. For a quick reminder, the phases of the community plan update process are phase 1. We started with a research phase of the draft of the South Maui Community Plan update process in early 2020. This phase includes data collection and agency coordination to identify current conditions, issues, and significant themes the plan should address. In-depth resource papers and infographic snapshots are available at the link at the bottom of this slide. Phase 2 is community engagement, which officially started in October of 2020 and ran through August of 2022. This phase includes interviews, meetings, workshops, and open houses. Phase 3, in August of 2022, the Planning Department draft of the South Maui Community Plan was released. Phase 4 is the Community Plan Advisory Committee held 42 meetings between October 2022 and November of 2023. The CPAC heard testimony for the South Maui community, as well as presentations from county departments and developers. The draft plan you have before you today was molded by all of these voices. Phase 5 is the Maui Planning Commission review. This is your opportunity to use your expertise as planning commissioners to recommend amendments to the draft plan. And then there's the Phase 6. Maui County Council has up to 1 year to review the draft plan, listen to public testimony, and adopt the plan by ordinance. The Maui Planning Commission has up to 180 days to review the plan. In your meeting packet today is the complete draft meeting schedule, which includes 9 meetings starting today through September 10th, scheduled after your regular Tuesday meetings. The schedule clearly outlines which sections you will be reviewing at each meeting so that you can come prepared with any questions or recommendations for those applicable sections. And of course, the schedule can be revised if your commission decides that it is necessary. Okay, on to a brief orientation of the content and layout of the draft plan. There are 5 sections in total, 3 of which are the meat of the plan. Section 2, Policy Framework, Section 3, Growth Framework, and Section 4, Implementation and Monitoring. Section 1, Plan Framework, contains background information, key challenges, and most importantly, the South Maui Community Plan vision and the 5 goals. The South Maui vision provides a guiding light for the community and the county. The vision was written with the community during the engagement phase and confirmed with minor tweaks by the CPAC. South Maui's beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving, with affordable housing close to good jobs and a variety of transportation options, including safe walking and biking paths lined with trees. The region's businesses, parks, and neighborhoods are connected, maintaining the small-town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected and celebrated, enhancing South Maui's sense of place. Section 3 is the growth. Wow, I skipped an entire slide. There is a slide missing from here. I apologize. Nope. Section 2 is the policy framework, which includes the goals: a complete and balanced, efficient, and connected transportation network, safe, healthy, livable communities for all, ready and resilient systems, Maukadamakai watershed management, and responsible stewardship of Wahi Kapuna and historic properties. The policy framework contains policies organized by 5 goals. The goals refine the vision and give structure to the policies in Section 2 and the actions in Section 4. As you know, policies are used by staff planners, the Maui Planning Commission, and other decision makers to review various land use applications and projects. Section 3 is the growth framework, is the heart of the community plan. It contains the community plan designations, which we will discuss in greater detail before your commission reviews Section 3, and the community plan map, which maps future desired growth using the community plan designations. We anticipate that your commission will spend most of the time reviewing and discussing the growth framework. The final meaty section is Section 4, Implementation and Monitoring, and it contains the actions to be implemented by the county over the 20-year span of the plan. It's a to-do list of actionable items for the county departments to help achieve the community plan's visions and goals. You may notice on this slide that the second action has 2 numbers, one of which is red and has been crossed out. The original number for both policies and actions from the planning department draft were included for easy reference during review. There are 8 appendices, including 2 added by the Community Plan Advisory Committee. Appendix G, Significant Sites and Areas in South Maui, and Appendix H, the Infrastructure Report. Review and recommendations. Today you will begin your review with Section 1, the Plan Framework. The Plan Framework is an important background for the plan. However, we encourage you not to spend too much time on this section. And then the policies and actions are what give structure to the vision. On your agenda today are the first 2 goals and their corresponding policies. The remaining 3 goals and their policies is scheduled to be reviewed at your next meeting. So policies for goals 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1, a complete, balanced, and efficient and connected transportation network. And 2.2, safe, healthy, livable communities for all. It's important to focus on what community plans do as you're going through your review. The policies guide plans for development and land use. Maps show where and what type of growth the community supports, and actions tell the county where to spend time and money. Mahalo for letting me provide you with this overview, and I'd be happy to answer any general questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. We will now go into public testimony. Do we have a list? Thank you. We will start with people here in the room, and then we will go online. So first up, we have Kelly King, followed by Charlene Schulenberg.
Okay, I think it's on, but it's not. Can you lower it a little bit? Because it's... If I turn it towards me, it's going to fall out. Okay, okay, thanks. Okay, you can start my 3 minutes. Aloha, everyone, and I really want to thank our council member, Gabe Johnson, for being here, and congratulate Anna Lillis for her new position as Deputy Director. I'm having a little bit of a hard time with this meeting happening. We have no South Maui member on the Planning Commission. So any decisions you make, I think, can be challenged in the future because you don't have the representation that is actually required by the charter. And so I'm here to ask you to set this aside until we get a South Maui member. The whole issue, as you probably know, is in court right now because the council rushed ahead with its own process of appointing boards and commission members, and the mayor is currently in court about whether or not his list was the more prevalent list. So that's the first thing. Is that it's offensive and dismaying to me as a community member to have you folks decide for us about this plan. There were two major recommendations that were made before this plan was even supposed to get to the Planning Commission. The South Maui Advisory, the Community Plan Advisory Committee recommended, one, that this go through the South Maui Advisory Committee, which would be all South Maui members first before it came to the Planning Commission. They also recommended that there be an infrastructure report and cost analysis. The Planning Department agreed to do it and is now saying they won't do it because the plan hasn't been passed and that was part of the plan. So there's a real contradiction there. We're all waiting for the infrastructure report because we feel like we don't have, people in South Maui feel like we don't have enough infrastructure for what's already here, much less what is planned in this new version of the plan. I want to also say that on the positive side, I also want to thank the Christian Chan, who's a developer who had been proposing what was going to happen on Wailea Golf, and he's not going to put another golf course there, but he is the one developer who came into this process and asked first, what does the community want? And he actually held a charrette meeting for the community. We came out, we talked about what components we want to see in that property that he's developing, and he redid his plan accordingly. So we don't get that a lot. We get developers coming in here trying to convince us that their project is good for us, and even without the infrastructure, the needed infrastructure. So please consider those three things. One, that you're in a process that has violated the charter already because you don't have a South Maui community member. That's not your fault, but it is your fault if you go ahead with this plan without a representative from our community. You also are lacking the infrastructure report that the Planning Department promised it would do, and I have tried to contact Kate Blystone several times, have gotten no response from her, so that was disappointing. And then the South Maui Advisory Committee, which has not been utilized by this administration for the purpose it was created for.
Okay, Thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Commissioner Kiloha.
Mahalo for your testimony, Mrs. King. I was actually on the Paia Haiku Planning Advisory Committee when that was first started, and we didn't get to review a lot of stuff, so I feel the frustration there. I'm curious, from your perspective, like if the CPAC was South Maui residents and then this goes to the South Maui Planning Advisory Committee, like what is the additional, why, like what would that provide?
Well, it would provide the additional I'm sorry, did you finish your question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question. It would provide additional input from the community, which we're not getting with this body today. I mean, there is supposed to be by charter one member from every district on the Planning Commission, and going through, there actually, the charter says there should be no more than 2 from any one district. Going into the community plan for South Maui, because it's such a big issue, and we have been at the forefront of development in the county of Maui for decades now. Throughout the 80s and 90s, we were the fastest growing community in the state of Hawaii. And it's imperative that people have as many opportunities to come out and address this plan, because we did not have, a lot of us feel like we did not have a strong enough voice at the CPAC. And, we're in a room right now that is full, and people are standing room only. So even the venues have not been accommodating throughout the CPAC process, and it went back and forth from one venue to another. But if you could send it to the organization that was meant to do the work of the Planning Commission for the community before things go to the Planning Commission, which is what the South Maui Advisory Committee was created for, then at least we would have a stronger voice, and we would feel, I haven't really felt very represented by the Planning Commission ever, because we went through years when we had nobody from South Maui on the Planning Commission. Now we have a bit of a dispute, and I would have expected that the Planning Commission would have waited till that dispute is settled before you go ahead with something as important as our community plan, which is supposed to carry us for the next 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Any further clarifying questions from the Commission? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Up next is Charlene Schulenberg, followed by Zoltan, I don't know how you say it. Rudowich. Thank you.
Aloha, everyone, and thanks again for all that you do and for the marathon session today. I am Charlene Schulenberg, the president of Kihei Community Association, and our association feels much like Kelly King does. I don't know that I need to repeat everything that she said, but I would like to stress the fact that we've been waiting for so long to have a community plan review, and we all know what's happened, even in the middle of some of that review was the fires. So I stated something this morning in testimony, but we all need to, I think, take this very, very seriously. South Maui, Kulakai has a very big infrastructure problem, and those that have been living here experience it daily. I think that to put this on you, if there's only 6 of you right now, I think that's quite unfair to put all of this on you, because there really should be 9 members. And so I think waiting for other members to join you is a more fair way for all of you and for the community to feel fully represented. It is such an important review time. I don't know if sending it to the South Maui Advisory Committee would have to be would make the process be all done with them for them before it comes to to you guys, to the commission. I don't know why there couldn't be possibly a parallel processing so that we have more eyes on this to give us more feedback so that we're really looking at this holistically and realistically. So I would make that possible recommendation and suggestion, is perhaps there could be, a dual two groups looking at it. We really do need South Maui representative to be present when you guys are reviewing this. I think it's only fair, and so I'm repeating myself now, but also if we postpone, this would probably give you the planning department a chance to finish the the infrastructure study, the detailed infrastructure report that is required. So yeah, there's some charter issues here. So let's all pay attention to that and be respectful of the process. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Any clarifying questions from the commission? Vice Chair Thompson.
Hey, thanks for coming and testifying. So are you recommending that this whole procedure is halted until all those things can be taken care of?
Well, we know that this is important to get something moving forward. I know that the planning director wants to get this moving. The community wants to get it moving. But we really do have a problem with only 6 members on the commission. Perhaps there's a way to at least let the South Maui Advisory Committee start the process. Maybe you guys can start the process too, and at least have that committee helping to advise and get the process moving in a way that at least the residents of Kulakai would feel like they're getting representation.
Sure. Do you guys feel like you're not getting representation from the Planning Commission now? I think most of the people here, many born and raised. I've only been here 36 years, but I can tell you I've been up and down most all the streets here, hiked, biked, golfed. So it's not like the island's not that big. It's only 55 miles long. So I think we really should have advisory people that come. They should have been on the Planning Commission. We have open chairs. I don't know why no one put them on. It's not our fault.
No,
we're here. We work. We do it all. We listen to people. We're here to help the community. So anyway, Kelly
King said it 3 or 4 times that no, she has not felt represented. So I think it's not that you guys aren't representing us. It's just we would prefer to actually have a South Maui representative present and available and really familiar with the day-to-day issues. Well, I'm not saying you haven't taken, interest in Kihei, but I'm reiterating what Kelly King said. There is a faction of people here that have not felt fully represented without having a South Maui representative.
Truly understandable. I think that should be taken up with the county council. Kelly King was on it. How come we didn't put anybody on then?
No, start debating.
Sorry.
Clarifying questions. Thank you. No, it's okay. That can be outside. We're keeping on task because I think there's a ton of people wanting to testify, and we only have 3 hours, less than that, 2.5 now. So any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Up next is Zoltan. Remind me. Thank you, Radowich, followed by David Good.
Hi, I'm Zoltan Radolic, and I represent Savio Group. We have 2 projects that someone willy-nilly decided.
Can you speak more into the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. That someone decided willy-nilly that they're going to reclassify our projects as open land. I don't know who the genius was that decided that our properties should be considered as wetlands. One of our projects is at the end of Ho'onani Street. The other one is Kulani Hakoi Gulch. None of these properties have any of the items that are required for a property to be designated as wetlands. I won't take too much of you folks' time. I'm sure you have other people that want to testify. I'm just letting you know that we're objecting to it. And you should have qualified people to designate properties that are wetlands. I'm going to repeat this one more time. We do not have any of the 3 items on our properties. This is the report that I had to do again, and which I paid $10,000 for, that it was unnecessary. I have a suspicion as to the people that designated this that it should be considered as wetlands. That's for another day to discuss. But please, the properties, I'll give you the TMK numbers on these, and that is 2391 parcel 7. The other 3 are 2391 parcel 16. I'm sorry, not parcel 16. It's parcel 164 and 162, and the other parcel is 23962, and it looks like it is parcel 19. Now, I invite the Commission to please take another look at this before we have to take legal action, which we don't want to do. So, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the Commission? Oh, Commissioner Dicos, we've got a question for you.
Okay.
You can stay at the mic.
All right.
Thank you for your testimony today. Can you clarify a little bit? So this is private property you own.
Yes.
And somehow there was a wetland survey and your property got incorporated into some wetland survey map?
That's correct. We have an SMA permit. We have been trying to get the property fully, get the permits issued. It's taken us 3 years. What a boondoggle you folks have at the
and the folks that did the wetland survey, do you know?
I suspect I know who it is, but I'd rather not name her. She started this whole mess.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I just make sure I have those TMKs written down properly?
Yes. Okay, Ho'onani is TMK 23901 parcel 7. The other 3 are 239 161 parcel 162 and 164. The other parcel is 23962 parcel 19.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next testifier is David Good, followed by Raymond Kabibi.
Chair, I thought that was an attendance sign-up sheet, so...
Okay.
We got one last testifier.
Okay. Thank you. Way to be thorough, though. That's appreciated. You get, gold star for that. Okay, so then up next we have Raymond Kabibi.
Good evening, Commissioners. Raymond Kabibi with CHP Maui, formerly known as Chris Harden Partners. I'm speaking on behalf of the owner of tax map key 2392, parcel 14, and his name is Mr. Paul Boschetti. This is a 20-acre parcel on the corner of South Key Road and Welakahau Road, identified as 79 East Welakahau Road. The owner respectfully objects to the proposed redesignation from single-family residential to open space of this property. The owner has expended extensive resources and time to develop housing on this property, in addition to the adjoining properties, specifically parcels 116, 150, and 151 on the same tax tax map. And the owner is proposing a project called the Welakahau Village. And originally it had 86 lots, and an SMA application was submitted in 2018 with all of the required studies and reports, including a wetland survey report. And this report identified 1.83 acres as freshwater emergent wetland and 1.23 acres of ephemeral channel through which Keokeo Gulch flows. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers accepted this report, and so the project was thus reduced to 80 lots to avoid impacting the wetlands. This body, the Maui Planning Commission, reviewed the project in 2019, during which 3 parties were granted intervenor status. And during the subsequent mediation period, additional studies were done, including a new cultural impact assessment, an additional archaeological inventory survey, and an updated biological survey. The archaeological inventory survey identified 4 sites that were determined to be potentially significant agricultural sites, although no EV was found. In an effort to avoid archaeological sites, the owner decided to drastically reduce the project to 38 lots. An updated traffic report was prepared last year, and an engineering report is currently being prepared to reflect the reduced project. In conclusion, the owner respectfully requests that the Commission reconsider the redesignation of Parcel 14 from single-family residential to open space so that this 38-lot single-family residential project can be developed, which will help ease the housing crisis on Maui. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any clarifying questions from the Commission? Commissioner Lindsay.
Can you do those TMKs again, please?
His TMK is 23902, Parcel 14. And that's the property that's actually being redesignated. But the project does include additional parcels, a parcel on the same tax map plat, 116, 150, and 151.
Thank you. That's all, Chair.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else signed up? Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, Michelle Del Rosario.
Good evening. Aloha, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Michelle Del Rosario. I'm here testifying on my own behalf this evening. I have 3 items I wanted to talk about. One is I want to go on the record as a resident of Maui County asking you not to move forward with review of the South Maui Community Plan until such time as there is a member from South Maui on this planning commission. I think transposing through the community, visiting the community, working in the community, exercising in the community is not the same. And I feel that this meeting may be violating the law and that the charter demands we must have a South Maui community member on the planning commission. And my question is where is the director of planning this evening? She has a not fully seated, I realize Anna's the deputy, but on something so important, I would expect the director to be here and the mayor. We have a partially filled planning commission. The mayor is responsible for providing names for boards and commissions. And we were not receiving candidates as South Maui applicants being selected by previous mayors. This is the very reason our county council supported the charter amendment to require district representation. And the group meeting this evening does not meet the requirements of the charter. So that was my first item. My second item is regarding the Salvial properties. I encourage this commission not to revisit those parcels. Having worked for Kelly King when she was the county council person for South Maui, I worked on projects that were referenced this evening that are in wetland areas, fronting South Kihei Road, in the gulches there at Kalani Hakoi, and South Kihei Road fronting Walakahau. Kihei has lost acres and acres of wetlands, and wetlands is one of the things that's going to stabilize their community, filter the water back into the water table, and reduce flooding that we experience on South Kihei Road. As for the second developer, CHP Maui, formerly Chris Hart Partners, no developer voluntarily wakes up one morning and goes, let me cut my project from 88 lots to 38 lots. There's a reason, because there's wetlands, there's flooding issues, there's other issues with these parcels. So I ask for you to not revisit them, not reclassify them, leave them as open space. And that concludes my testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. Any clarifying questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again. Okay, we will move online. We have first Christian Chan, followed by Johan Lal.
Okay. Aloha, Chair Fair, distinguished members of the Maui Planning Commission, planning staff, and community members in attendance tonight. My name is Christian Chan. I'm a principal with Wailea Golf LLC, the owners of Wailea Golf property in South Maui. I hope this is the right juncture, but I'm testifying today to formally communicate our intent and request to submit a proposal on map to the Maui Planning Commission for inclusion in the South Maui Community Plan. I'd like to share a bit of background and review of our process leading up to this testimony today. Our team has been engaging with the South Maui Community Plan since CPAC began reviewing the draft plan in October 2022, 19 months ago. Either myself and my colleague, Barry Hele, prioritized attending each of the 40-plus CPAC meetings in person, with the exception of 3, which were attended virtually. Through these meetings, we learned as much as possible about the plan and listened intently to the CPAC discussions and testimonies from the community. I'm sorry I wouldn't be there in person tonight, but I'm flying out for Coles meeting to help my wife. We began meeting with various CPAC members and community stakeholders in April 2023 to talk about issues and priorities that we should consider and integrate into any proposal that we might come up with for our property. We used the recently, at that time, completed CPAC goals and policies as a framework for those discussions. Following these meetings in September and October 2023, we hosted an online public survey with probing questions related to the draft plan and its goals and policies. We were able to collect over 200 responses from community members. Also in October 2023, we held a public in-person planning workshop right there where you're sitting at the Nelson Center, where we generated additional feedback and discussions specifically related to the 5 draft plan goals and how our property could potentially help accomplish them. This workshop was publicized through homeowner and community associations across South Maui and with the help of various community leaders, and was attended by over 30 South Maui community members. Finally, during the last quarter of 2023, we collected and distilled all of that feedback and translated it into proposed land use actions on our property with the dual goals of actually implementing the goals and policies of the draft plan, while also ensuring that any land use changes proposed made business sense for our company. This process resulted in the proposal and map that we would like to present to the Maui Planning Commission for its consideration, and one that we frankly are quite excited about and hope you eventually are too, due to its features addressing issues and opportunities related to the plan's vision and all 5 goals, including transportation, housing, livability, infrastructure, water, watershed and drainage, and cultural assets. The Chair Sarah and Commissioners, at your discretion and availability, we would very much appreciate the opportunity to review our proposal with you all prior to formally submitting it, which we assume might happen during the growth framework meeting for Wailea and McKenna, tentatively scheduled for July 9th and July 23rd of this year. Lastly, in case any of you are wondering why we didn't submit our proposal during the CPAC review phase, I would be happy to answer that question as well as any other questions you may have for me. Mahalo for your time and for your service.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. So can you tell me what the reason was? Or tell us, all right?
We made a conscious decision through the process that it was really the utmost important that any proposal we did submit be responsive to the draft plan and to the findings of our community engagement efforts. So in order to respond to the draft CPAC plan, and in particular its goals and its policies, as well as the community engagement that we felt needed to follow that, and then create a proposal centered within that, the sequence and timeline was such that we had to submit our proposal during the Maui Planning Commission review phase, just in terms of how it shook out. I think notably, we explained this process and intention to the CPAC during their review, and it was not met with any disapproval.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
We have 3 more people in the room that want to testify. Do you want to go before Johan or after you do the video? What do you guys usually do if you have more in-room testifiers?
I guess I'll finish Johan and then I can do
these 3. Yeah, in one second.
Thank you. Did you want to ask something? Okay. Thank you for your testimony. That's all the questions. Okay, next up is Johan Lal, and then we will jump back into the in-room testifiers. You're on mute, Johan.
Mr. Law, we can't hear you.
We will come back to you. We'll give you time to troubleshoot that. Okay, so in the room, we have 3 people signed up in the room, and then we'll go back online. So first we have Daniel Kanahele, followed by Cal Chipchase.
Aloha kako. Nice to be back with you again. My name is Daniel Kanahele. I am testifying as an individual. There are 4 people here that were members of the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee. The chair is here, the vice chair, which is myself, and 2 other committee members. All 13 of us, plus 2 that resigned from the committee, were all residents of South Maui, with intimate knowledge of this area, with hundreds of years of living here. We worked almost a year on this plan, hundreds of hours. We met many times in this room, pooling our knowledge and expertise to come up with this plan. Having said that, I think for most of us CPAC members, we would like to see a Kihei member seated, a South Maui member seated on the Maui Planning Commission. I know it's not your fault, it's the county council, but that doesn't mean that one of you folks can speak for us who live in South Maui and make a motion to defer this meeting. And I hope one of you do that and take that vote out of respect for us and all the effort we put into this plan. Because despite the fact that many of you do visit South Maui, you don't have the depth of understanding and knowledge that we have in many areas. So I think it's a mistake to move forward with this meeting. I think you're going to run into issues with us who live here. We feel disrespected that we don't have someone representing us on this commission. So please, someone make a motion to defer this meeting until someone from Kihei, South Maui, is seated. Secondly, the Appendix H infrastructure report was something I made a motion to include in the plan based on testimony from the public. And the reason why it's important, we felt it was important as CPAC, that you have this infrastructure report that tells you how much infrastructure you will need and how much that's going to cost will help you to determine what you can effectively include in the plan. Now, it was our expectation that you, the Maui Planning Commission, would have that report by now. It's been at least 6 months since we adjourned the South Maui CPAC. You should have that in your hand now. I don't know why you don't. Maybe you can ask the planning department, where is that plan? Because we felt that was very important for you to know, especially considering the scope of that which was recommended is twice as much as what was required based on projected population growth for South Maui. So instead of maybe 2,000 or 3,000 homes, the proposal was twice that, maybe 6,000 homes. That's a lot of infrastructure. And how much is that going to cost? So it's good to have the numbers in front of you so you can make good decisions. And finally, I want to say that I was the vice chair on the South Maui Advisory Commission. The chair is in this room. My term expired on March 31st. We only met once in the almost 3 years I was on that commission on the same agenda item. Nothing was referred to us from the Maui Planning Commission. What a waste of resources. You had these 7 residents of South Maui that could help on issues pertaining to South Maui, and the Maui Planning Commission never referred anything to us for my entire time. I'm no longer on there. I said, what a waste. Nobody ever used us or utilizes us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Dicos.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham, for your testimony. Can you talk a bit? So I'm looking at the agenda, and I know these community plans come out. What is it every? Gosh, I should know that. But anyway,
supposed to be every 10 years.
Every 10 years, and then we have our meetings scoped. If we don't need the extra meetings, looks like going through September. Just your thoughts on the balance of this takes forever. We hear that this plan takes forever by the time it's implemented. People think that everything's changed. So the question for you is that balance of waiting. I totally agree there should be representation on the Planning Commission. I agree there. But so if we wait for the representation there, and then a lot of people have talked about kicking this back to the South Maui Advisory Planning Committee. I don't know if I got that name wrong. Advisory Committee. What are your thoughts about the just pushing the timeline of getting this done versus taking the time for the rep to be on board, to go back to the advisory committee, and then go through this process?
There should be a rep. That's a county council issue. I don't know what happened there, why there isn't a rep. There were people that applied for the position, and it's a county council's job and the mayor's job to make sure they follow the charter, which is the constitution of our county. So there should be a rep, period. You shouldn't move forward, in my opinion, without a rep, because we want someone on the Maui Planning Commission, especially. This is our community plan. It's a 20-year vision for growth and development in our community, and we want representation. It's only fair, right? You'd ask for the same thing if it was your community. This is our community, and we're asking for that. It's a simple request. So I think that's important. So I'm not on the South Maui Advisory Commission anymore. I don't know if the Maui Planning Commission has any respect at all for what that possibly could do to assist, advise this commission. But you have a new chair now, Chair Thayer, and I like the way she conducts her meetings. So maybe that will change. And it's always good to have new blood, Things change depending on who's on the commission. So I'm hoping you just send more things to the South Maui Advisory Commission to assist you. As far as how long things take, government wheels churn very, very slowly. That's just a process. We already have skin in the game. We spent a whole year on this, and there was years before that. So we're too deep into it to stop now. It might take a little bit more time, but we've already taken a lot of time. So I don't think how fast you can get it done is an issue. Let's just get her done, starting with getting someone seated right over there next to you, yeah?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, up next is Cal Chip Chase, followed by Vernon Kalanico.
Yes, it does. All right, so the Cal Chip Chase, the testimony they handed out is the same in the email. Sometimes it's easier for me to see it in hard copy and follow along, and so I brought copies. I want to place my testimony in the South Maui Community Plan and a little bit in context. The context being, where does the plan affect your decision making on future actions? You will principally see the community plan come up in rezoning, where you're making recommendations to the council, and in SMA, where you have approval authority over SMA majors. Those are the principal contexts in which the Planning Commission will then deal with the South Maui Community Plan and what is a part of it. In that context, I want to focus my testimony today only on the policies that will come before the Commission today, or at least we'll start the discussion of. Those policies I've set out in my written testimony, and for purposes of talking about them with you, I organized them a little bit into subject. And the first subject I wanted to address are policies that will actually make it harder to develop affordable housing. Those policies, as written, are 2112, 2218, 2219, 2221, 2226, 2227, 2228. And I proposed changes next to each of those policies that would eliminate what would be the challenge to, or the inflexibility that those policies would establish, and then provided some rationale. I'll focus on just three of them in my oral testimony. The first is the elimination of credits as a way to satisfy affordable housing. That's inconsistent with County Code at Chapter 2.96, and it also impacts developers who exclusively, or at least more than their fair share, develop affordable housing and generate credits. The ability to sell those credits facilitates the development of affordable housing. If you eliminate them, you hurt the development of affordable housing. The second is at 2.7, where the plan would prohibit the development of new luxury homes or transient units. Luxury is not defined. Transient would include hotels. The development of those kinds of units, one, spurs the development of affordable housing. And so if you prohibit them until there's adequate affordable housing, you limit the development of affordable housing. The second part is that the requirement that there be adequate affordable housing before those other units are allowed is not defined. What does adequate for our existing needs mean? It's too vague even for a policy. The last one is at 2.8 that I'll focus on. It would encourage the preference for workforce housing for residents of Kihei. I think that should be residents and folks who work here, work in the area because they may want to move here. That's where their jobs are, and so we should be as flexible as possible. Running quickly through the next categories at 2.3.3, that would prohibit. I see I'm out of time.
You summarize in one sentence.
I absolutely can. The rest of my changes that I've proposed are things that are consistent with county code and consistent with constitutional law. I suggest that when you get to those policy provisions, you make the common sense revisions that allow the policies to go forward without impacting what they're designed to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the Commission? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is Vernon Kalanico, and then we will go back online to Johan.
Yeah, Aloha Commission. So I want to talk about the Kulani Hako'i and the Waipuilani gouches. The gentleman that was talking about it, he was talking about when she. I am the she, that he, she, talking about the he, she. So I had a guy that document all that stuff in the gouch, so you guys gotta know that gouch is run. So how you guys gonna approve on project in the gouch? Kulani Hako'i, not too long ago, the emergency proclamation cleanup, it was Savio's employee that went wipe out the wetland features, Makai. It was him. Nothing would happen to him. I filed an RFS. Kelly King jumped in the boat and the party to help, get that process going. Nothing would happen. Coming up soon, I'll be meeting with Public Works engineer and planners because there is a Kulani Hako'i settlement removal for the gulch, mostly Makai. So a lot of that stuff can come out. So I'm still thinking how broad I'm going to build in the gulch. So there's wetland features down there that was destroyed by his worker. And what I worry about is the water table. If you guys go over there, look for yourself, you can see the spring. Live and well forever. Never went away. That water comes from Mauka, not from Makai. So it's freshwater spring that's still living and breathing there. So the Waipulani one, you guys know how wide the Waipulani upside by Pilani Highway. So the water does go to his property that he's trying to propose. But a berm was built to deflect the water. Public Works said they never go make that berm. So that water goes north to Kalani Hako'i Road on the future north-south collector road. So a lot of their water goes that way where it never used to go that way. So somebody went divert that water there, not Public Works. But that project is in one spillway. It doesn't have to be wetland. That was Waipulani Gulch. And then obviously it comes 20 feet narrow at South Kihei Road, like every place in South Kihei. Comes skinny on the bottom but wide on top. The other one is for our good friend over there that was sharing about the Welakahau village, proposed village. Myself, a few others, we intervened in that a few years ago. The Planning Commission at that time gave us 9-0 vote. Never happened for years. And you know why they did that? They saw that there's some value there culturally and wetland. So it's wet downside, but whatever happened right above, that all going to impact what happens below. So we got to really look at that because in that area is Keokea Gulch runs into there. So yeah, I just wanted to share, let you guys know that we get floods in those areas. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again. We will go back online now to Johan Law, followed by Scott Laurie.
Aloha. Am I audible now?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I'm testifying. Oh, this is Johan Lau. I'm testifying as an individual and a South Maui resident and a former, staffer of the South Maui Community Plan. And I think I'm probably the only staff member who would testify. So I just wanted to testify on the plan as a whole for now, and I want to speak in favor of it because a large amount of work went into the plan, both by staff and the members of the CPAC, as you know. But it was really grueling for them doing weekly meetings and also evening meetings. So I also want to encourage you guys to consider doing like daytime meetings to make it easier on yourself, because I, for one, wouldn't want to be making decisions, in 12-hour days after having a full set of meetings early in the day. But that's because I'm like almost 40, so I'm feeling the effects of age. I did want to address some of the testimony from developers. So they almost all developers had the same opportunity, which was to speak with staff and get, suggestions on how they could affect the process. And they were pretty much all told that they could go and make their case to the CPAC for what they wanted, and a lot of them did. I know David Good did. I don't know about Mr. Chan. I do remember he came to our office with maps and stuff, and we told him and his staff that they could go and make presentations and all that, but I don't recall if they actually did that. But, this was, I'm not sure how many meetings there were. It was a lot of meetings, and so there was a lot of opportunities to come and be a part of the process. So I would caution against making changes for specific individuals, because one important thing I think is consistency, and then also having the plan be representative of what the community wanted at the time. And I guess I should say there was one developer who had a special opportunity, which was Rory Frampton, and staff in general did not agree with him having special privileges, but our leadership disagreed. That was the previous director, not the current director, by the way. But overall, I think it was a fair process, and protecting things like gulches, wetlands, all that's really important.
3 minutes. Can you summarize in one sentence?
So we've seen the effect of the status quo. We've got flooding, we've got all kinds of issues, and if folks want a different way going forward, which does seem to be the case, I would encourage being very careful about any changes. So, mahalo.
Thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Up next is Scott Lowry. Lowry?
Hi, this is...
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Scott Lowry, and I live in South Maui. I've been a full-time resident here for 10 years, and I live in a complex that is a vacation rental, Halekama'ole, and it's on the Minatoya list, so it's based on your plan. It's going to be changed to be just apartments and long-term housing. So one of the things I'd like to talk about is 2.2.25 is where part of your plan is to convert the vacation rentals to long-term housing. It's a small sentence in there, and it's kind of in line with 2.2.34, which is to reduce the number of visitors on the island. So if you reduce the number of visitors on the islands, it's going to reduce the jobs on the island. Vacation rentals on the in Kihei, or on the island, comprise about 44% of all the hotel rooms, of all the nights that are available for people to come visit Maui. It also, hotels are the other part of that, 44.8%. And there's 400,000 nights available on the island. The daily rates for the vacation rentals are an average $370 versus $777 for the hotels. What's going to be hard hit when you reduce all of these vacation rentals is that you're going to see the grocery stores take a hit. You're going to see all the rentals, all the small businesses, the restaurants are all going to take a hit because people come and go out to eat, and they come and when they go to a vacation rental, they go buy groceries and stock up, and then when they leave, a lot of the stuff that they bought, they just throw away or they give away to someone else. This is just a boon to the big hotels. The big hotels must really be behind this plan, because when you reduce visitors, you reduce jobs, which means you reduce the need for housing. You reduce the tax revenue. You reduce the number of businesses in South Maui. And you reduce the need for growth because there aren't any jobs there. The other item that you had in there was redeveloping shopping centers to be multi-purpose, including part residential. So it looks like you're planning for many businesses to actually go away during this process. When we look at the growth plan, you say that South Kihei is an area of stability, but yet you're removing thousands.
3 minutes. Can you summarize in one sentence?
Yes. the summarization is that it's hard to do. Anyway, I just think it's very unfair, and it's not with the aloha spirit to take away people's livelihoods. I mean, for me, I live there full time, but for other people that are owners, that are friends, that have supported this community for years, it's just cruel to take away their ownership and their ability to make a living. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again. Next, we have Lucienne Dene.
Aloha, planning commissioners. This is Lucienne Dene. Mahalo for doing a double shift today. I'm testifying on behalf of myself. First of all, I think you folks have already seen why you really need a South Maui rep. When you have people who live in South Maui, they know where it floods. They know the areas that really needed to be protected, and that's why the group of CPAC residents put these areas in protection. Please don't second guess them, especially not having any representation from the community. I could give you lots of details about the parcels discussed, but in the interest of 3 minutes, I'd like to jump to the policies in 2.2. So you've been asked to start changing around language to make it more practical, and yet people put a lot of thought into these policies. What's wrong, for instance, requiring affordable housing projects to be near job centers, schools, transit, and services? I mean, we have a whole tech park that is zoned for housing. We have other areas that are zoned for housing that are very near job centers, that are relatively near schools. Let's concentrate on those and not build way out in the middle of nowhere, and then not give a good quality of life to people if they want to have a house that's affordable. And then this idea to change require to encourage. I've never really seen a definition of encourage, have you? I mean, who does the encouraging? Is that some staff position? Is that their kuleana to encourage this or encourage that? It's like require is a clear word. Planners tell us again and again, we need clear guidelines from our policies and plans. If we don't know really what action to take. And then on to the permitted workforce housing units to be completed before or at the same time as the rest of the project. You're told that we already have this as a law as 2.96, but 2.96 has been amended many times and it could be amended again. It's nice to have this language in the community plan. Nothing wrong with it. The public is tired of broken promises. The idea of prohibiting new transit units and requiring the development of high-end luxury homes to provide required workforce housing in the Kihei area, that has very, very good intent. Now, you're told that it's possibly illegal, not constitutional, etc., that it doesn't comport with Chapter 296. Well, once again, 296 has been amended many times. Policies in the community plan, and I served on the GPAC, so we suggested many, many policies, and some of those have resulted in shifts in our laws. So I would stick with what your predecessors in South Maui have worked through, and don't go tinkering with things simply because people who are representing large landowners have plenty of time to think and tell you what to do. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again. Okay, next up to testify is Albert Perez.
Aloha, commissioners, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good evening and thank you for this marathon day. I'm Albert Perez. I'm with the Maui Tomorrow Foundation. First thing I want to talk about is the testimony was submitted that raised the possibility of constitutional issues if community plan designations were inconsistent with zoning. That's backwards. Hawaii Revised Statutes 46-4 says, zoning in all counties shall be accomplished within the framework of a long-range, comprehensive general plan, prepared to guide the future overall development of the county. Zoning shall be one of the tools available to the county to put the general plan into effect, so the general plan, of which the community plan is a part, rules over zoning and not the other way around. Secondly, there was some testimony submitted by developers and attorneys who are trying to scare you into removing strong language like require and asking you to replace it with weak words like encourage. I ask you to remember that the language in this draft is the result of much discussion and debate, and the community strongly supports mandatory language. If that language is not strong and enforceable, then the citizens who served on the Community Plan Advisory Committee will have wasted their time. Finally, about the infrastructure report, I urge you to look carefully at the testimony that was submitted by Dick Mayer. The draft of the plan before you is incomplete because it's missing a capital improvement element and a financial element that are required by county code. People might point out that there was already an infrastructure and public facilities assessment done in 2021 as part of the research for this plan. What you may not know is that almost 600 acres were added to the map at the request of a developer consultant without updating that infrastructure assessment. Therefore, the existing infrastructure report does not take into account the needs for water, wastewater, solid waste, etc. for the 600 acres that was added. It also fails to explicitly discuss costs. So in Appendix H, the CPAC required a detailed infrastructure report to include those costs consistent with the county code, but the planning department has now brought this plan forward to you without doing so. That needs to be fixed. It needs to be completed for the plan to be valid. In general, I urge you to be respectful of all the time and effort that was put into this community plan and to avoid changing it. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Dicos?
Thank you, Mr. Perez, for your testimony. Can you clarify, you're the second person that brought up the infrastructure report, Appendix H. Can you just expand on that? Is that something that was developed by the CPAC, or the county was asked to do it and include it?
That's my understanding. There's a detailed discussion of it in Dick Mayer's testimony. I think he was the one who came up with the idea. And it was toward the end because it was a glaring omission. There was 600 acres that were added to the land use map without updating even the existing infrastructure report that didn't have any addressing of costs. So the plan is deeply flawed because it has all these ideas, but there's no tie to reality in terms of what's going to be able to be accomplished. Can the county provide infrastructure for all that new development that's proposed that, as Daniel Kanahele pointed out, it greatly exceeds the population forecast. So that's why the county code requires that the infrastructure and the financing all be tied to the designation of new land use.
Okay, so just to clarify, it was requested by the CPAC, and you're hoping to see it in this draft plan.
It is talked about in Appendix H of the draft plan. So you can see the exact language there in Appendix H at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Hey, mahalo.
Is there anybody else sign up to testify? Not on video. Is there anybody in the gallery here who would like to testify? Okay. Thank you.
Aloha winala ko maho aloha. Good evening, my friends. Zandra Amaral Kraus, and I sat in, I think, all except for 3 meetings from the CPAC. And though we do not have, you mean first time? Boy, you gotta turn on the mic. Oh, hello? Oh, okay. Sandra Merle Krause. I sat in most of the, if not all outside of 3, CPAC meetings. And it was comprised of families like this young man right here. His family has been a part of the Kihei, and they're Ahupuaha for over 100 years. And so Kihei was well represented. Though we do not have someone seated who physically lives in Kihei, I think that's irrelevant right now. We have got to put into effect our community plan. We have wasted far too much time. And I think the vetting that I heard through the CPAC meeting was very thorough. You've got before you something that the community has put together with well-represented Kihei members who lived not only here now, but for generations on end that I grew up with. So do not delay your discussions. Do not delay your decisions. We, the community, outside of a few handful of people, need this done because we want to move on. We want to see homes built for our children. We want to see our wetlands preserved. We want to see our community preserved while still taking care of our children, our mo'opuna. So my humble request is not having someone who physically lives here does not prevent you from doing your fiduciary responsibility because you've got us to answer to, and we're here if you need anything. So I humbly ask that you move forward. We need this done. We cannot wait another year. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else in the gallery who would like to testify?
Sure.
Yeah. Just state your name for the record.
CJ Alazares. Okay. I am a cultural and lineal and genealogical descendant of Honuaula. I know we come under this South Maui plan, along with all these other moku and their ahupua'a. I think you guys got one short decision to make tonight, to either move forward, like she said, or defer, like Daniel said. I go in short term, well, maybe long term. What is the word? Answer for that. I would like to sit on this thing right now so we can move forward tonight. And it's not your guys' fault. I don't know if Kelly can go and change them if she gets elected, for the policies that the charter has. I don't live out here. I am the result of poor planning over the past 30 years. We cannot afford to live out here, so I don't have an address that says that I live out here, but I spend almost every single day of my life out here. I drove through that roundabout today 5 times. It'll be 6 to go home to my kids. And yeah, I don't know how the election things work, but get open seat. I'll sit there so you can move forward if that's the problem. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
I can sit there then.
Thank you. Yes.
Chair, we have one more testifier, Mike Moran, online.
Okay, Mike online, please go ahead and testify.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Many hours ago, I said good morning to your group. So, yes, hopefully this doesn't continue. This is extremely challenging for you. I would just like to say I was a member of the CPAC from day one till the end, and as most of us did, I attended every single meeting, and I was at the beginning of every meeting, and I was at the end of every meeting. And at one point, we extended the meetings from an 8:30 close to a 9 p.m. close. And you can see all this gray. That was hitting into my normal bedtime, but we persevered. And I would just voice that I don't think that we're in any position to say, let's rush this and get it done. The current plan we have is from 1998. And so this, every 10 years is a pipe dream. That doesn't happen, it's not every 10 years. So when this one is finished, I know this will be my last one, and I venture to say some of you guys who are much younger than me, and maybe your last one too, this one may be not renewed for 20 or 30 years. So I think it's more important to get it done correctly, get it done right, and as many have spoken before me said, I too think that you should have a member from South Maui on here. The citizens think so because when it was on the ballot, was that in 2022? They voted for this. So the whole entire community said, yes, we want to have representation from each district. And since that time, we have not. So now that you guys are reviewing this plan that is particular to South Maui, we should have somebody sitting here. This is not to disparage any of you, that some of you are doing everything you can, but as some have said before me, it's a lot different if you visit here and if you live here. And I think all of you can say that about your own communities. It's not the same to have to visit or to work as to live here and go through the day-by-day issues. So that's my hopefully abbreviated comment for this evening. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe there's nobody else online who has signed up to testify. Is there anybody else in the gallery who would like to testify? Going once? Going twice? Okay, testimony is closed. And now we move on to questions from the commission. If you have any follow-up questions to the department from their presentation, or any questions that have come up from testimony that you would like to ask the department. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. And do we have Corp Counsel? They're on board. Maybe we can ask them about some of this. I'm a little unsure myself about that, if it legally we should proceed or not. It should be on ice until such time. Who do we have? Oh, there we are. Mr. Rowe.
Hi, I'm available.
Excellent. Thanks. Did you get any of what I was asking there?
I believe so, but if you want to ask again.
Sure. There seems to be some controversy of if this meeting should even take place. If any decision, because we do not have a member from Kihei on the Planning Commission.
So, we are going through the process of trying to get the commission fully staffed, having its full membership. That being said, there's rules about what your guys' quorum are, and you guys are capable of moving forward when you have quorum. So, I think that's our position.
Thank you for that answer. Any follow-up questions Did that answer your question? Yeah? Okay. All right. Commissioner Dicos?
Well, just based on what you said, I guess it kind of makes sense. So even if we had a South Maui member and they weren't able to attend the meeting, we would still be able to proceed without violating the charter. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Shall we move forward with our review? Everybody comfortable? Okay. Oh.
I was just going to recommend a 10-minute break.
Oh, sure. Yes, we can do a 10-minute break. Yeah, we are an hour and a half in. So yes, let us do a 10-minute break. This is a good halfway point. Okay, we have all of our commissioners present. Gallery is quieting down. We will reconvene our meeting. Okay, so on our agenda, we have review of Section 1, the plan framework, and then Section 2, the policy framework goals 2.1 and 2.2. And we have about an hour and 15 minutes. And so question from Commissioner Dicos.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was wondering if I could ask Corp Counsel a clarifying question.
Sure. Can I ask people on that side to talk outside? Thank you.
So, and I don't know how much this can be discussed. So I understand the South Maui nomination is in litigation, just how they were appointed. There are 2 other seats on the commission that we need to fill. And if they weren't, if those seats weren't part of that nomination process, don't they get filled regardless under the normal process outside of this legal effort?
Yeah, that would be correct. They would go through the regular nomination process with the independent nomination board.
Okay, so is there a board? I'm just wondering what that timeline would look like. Is that board formed and they would submit names to the county council or to the mayor? What's the process?
That is the intention, is that the board is seated and then the board makes recommendations, and then it goes to the mayor and the mayor submits it to the council.
Okay, and I just bring this up.
I don't know where exactly things are with the remaining open seats on the commission. The department might be more equipped to answer that than I am.
Right, but we haven't had South Maui rep since I've been on, so over a year and a half. And I know we can have 2 seats on the South Maui, so it just appears that despite the legal process that we could potentially have a South Maui position in a relatively short time. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Relatively quick is a difficult word for me to answer. The county is still in budget processes. Or actually, I think they just ended budget last. So we have the council has been a bit backed up. But yes, that is accurate. It could be done relatively quickly.
Okay.
Commissioner Lindsay.
I'm also wondering how South Maui Advisory Committee plays into this process. I know we have a HANA Advisory Committee, but I'm not sure how we could incorporate them into this, or is there someone who sits here who says what happened at the meetings, or how does that work?
Can I ask the planning department to weigh in on this?
Thank you, Chair. My understanding is that this commission can refer the South Maui Community Plan to the South Maui Community Advisory Committee. I beg your pardon. Yeah.
And if we referred it to them, then we would relook at it again after they looked at it, or would we just take their advice and yes or no?
Yes, you would receive a report out from their review and receive their recommendations and could review it and incorporate their recommendations if you so chose.
So we can incorporate their recommendations and then we review it.
You could do it concurrently. There's a lot of different ways that could happen, but you would have their report to go off of in any sort of decision making that you made.
That is started by us here.
It would be up to you folks to determine whether or not you wanted to refer it to them.
And they were the creators of this?
I said the wrong name, so that's why.
Okay.
But at the beginning of this, I apologize for that.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioners, that's something I want to talk about possibly. Chair, I don't know.
So you want to talk about referring, I guess, doing a concurrent review where South Maui Advisory Committee reviews it as we review it, or for them to review it first and then we review their recommendation?
I think it would be good to include them possibly in the process, but I'm not sure how this was established, and this is a unique situation that hasn't really come up yet because Hana is isolated, Lanai is isolated, Molokai is isolated relatively. This is kind of a community that everybody, is part of also, even though we don't live here. So, which is probably why it is how it is. But it would be something worth discussing, in my opinion.
Sure. I think we did discuss it, but I can't. Well, I guess I do recall discussing this at some point last year when Long Range brought this up, that we were going to be embarking on this review. And we had gone through the different scenarios of referring this to the South Maui Advisory Committee versus having this body review it. And there was something to do with the public hearing process, from what I recall.
Unfortunately, Chair, that is not something I am briefed on and happened prior to my rejoining of the department. I apologize. I think Corp Counsel has some input, Chair.
Corp Counsel?
I'm sorry, I don't really have any input. I also was not involved in the earlier process.
Chair, I remember that discussion, and I remember, there was some members stating that it seemed duplicative and unnecessary. I think I asked the question about how many extra meetings is this going to put on the Department of Planning? Do they have to put agendas out and take the minutes and do all that? So I knew it was an extra burden being put on. But I'm curious how many. There's been a request that it get kicked back there. There's been a request to have a South Maui rep. So I don't know if there's a way to buy a little bit of time so we can get that South Maui rep, and maybe if there's a couple of meetings, I don't know how many meetings they need to review it, but maybe they have one or two. Is that enough? And then maybe we have our South Maui rep at this point, and then we pick up. Anyway, I'm just thinking out loud.
Vice Chair?
I would second that as an motion. If we had a 60-day delay, the Advisory Commission can put all their notes into it. By that time, we could have a planning commissioner from Kihei and then resume keep us out of lawsuits, perhaps.
Okay, so you're saying we suspend our review for 60 days and give the South Maui Advisory Committee that 60 days to do their review and to give us their recommendation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lindsay?
I recall trying to send something to the South Maui Advisory Committee, and then the timing didn't work out. And so because of that timing and the deadlines, we opted not to send it to them. Is that something that we will run into now?
Chair, yes. My understanding is that we have the limited time that we do, 180 days, and with the outline that the Long Range Division has presented, this uses that full timeline without a 60-day delay.
There are 4 extra meetings that are not used, but it is anticipated you probably would use them.
So our possible option is to concurrently look at it. Can we talk about that? How that would affect the process or how that would work? Can you explain that to us?
To concurrently look at it, I don't actually know about referring it to the Planning Commission, but the way it could work scheduling-wise, that's all I'm talking about, is you could have how you have the 2 sections that you're going to review, essentially the 2 policies, have them look at those same sections, and then refer it, then send their findings on to you for those sections. So they look at the same sections you are, so it's not either one of you reviewing the whole thing first.
Commissioner Dicos?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe a compromise, if we did 30 days, then at least, is that too short? I don't know if you can get 2 meetings in there, and no, not likely. And get a planning commissioner on. Too optimistic.
Deputy Director?
Chair, thank you. In looking at the website for the South Maui Advisory Committee, it does appear as though there's 3 vacancies out of the 7, leaving only 4 members. So I do not think they have quorum to meet.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, then, yeah, sorry. If there's quorum, then I guess they could meet. And, yeah, if we do 60 days or 30 days, just with the caveat that if they don't produce a product, that you folks would still move forward, and that wouldn't, like, hold up your review.
I'm wondering, just to put out another idea, is if we give the South Maui Advisory Committee specific sections that we would want them to review as a means to expedite, but still enable their input. Commissioner Kealoha, do you have any thoughts?
Just that I'm on board with supporting what the community wants, which sounds like South Maui input. However, we work that out.
Okay, so sounds like our commission is trying to figure out how to have the South Maui Advisory Committee have a chance to review for 60 days. Yes, I guess procedurally, can the department let us know how that would work with noticing Corp Counsel?
So yeah, it would be normal notice requirements. So you would post the agenda prior to, and specify, which portions you're going to have them review in that agenda.
Okay, so would we want to give them, so just playing out this scenario, commissioners, would we want to give them specific sections to review, or say you have 60 days for the whole entire plan? And I think we would have to take into account, so if we give this charge like today, then the meeting has to be noticed 2 weeks ahead of time? Question mark?
It's 7 days ahead of time for sunshine law, but we also have to arrange meeting space and make sure everyone's available.
So I'm just thinking logistically, if this 60-day timeline is possible, because we would need to provide time for that meeting to get organized and then noticed, and then they have, say, 60 days from now or 60 days from when that meeting occurs, their first meeting.
I would err with the caution of 60 days from today, because we have our 180-day timeline, so we are also on a timeline, and because these are going concurrently, it shouldn't really affect the other, except for maybe us potentially speeding it up at the end.
Okay, so then we will continue our review as scheduled, and we will ask them to do a review for the next 60 days. Is that correct? Commissioner Dicos?
No, that wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm more concerned with the commissioner representation. So I wanted to buy a little bit of time so they could fill that seat, and then we're solid. We have that representation. If we're delaying and the review commission has an opportunity, I don't know how many meetings they would need, but I know that's more work for the department. I feel bad about that. You guys are already overloaded, but I'm more concerned about trying to buy a little bit of time so they can get a seat on South Maui. But so I would rather we didn't start our process until, we're not going to wait forever for that seat to be filled, but set a deadline and then we pick it up from there, wherever it's at, was my thinking.
Commissioner Lindsay.
So what is the minimum amount of time that would be? If somebody already applied and the mayor has them as a potential candidate and is planning on putting them forth, what is the earliest date they can join us?
Chair, without knowing where they're at in that process, it's really hard to say, but after this meeting, of course, we'll be following up with the mayor's office on any sort of timeline that they can give us, but at this stage, I don't feel comfortable committing the mayor's office to any sort of timeline, unfortunately.
And then I guess maybe Corp Council can weigh in on this, but I believe any action by the county council needs to first go through council, then it gets referred to committee, then it goes back to full council, and then there's first reading and second reading.
That is accurate.
Okay, so just that alone would take like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so weeks with meeting noticing. 2 months maybe.
That seems accurate, yeah.
That's your best case, which is 60 days.
Yeah, given we have no control over that, I might defer more to the review committee getting an opportunity to provide input. So, yeah.
Okay, I do have one other procedural question for, I don't know if this is Corp Council or Department, but since we did our public hearing tonight, this starts our 180-day clock, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I believe it is in our best interest to continue this commission's review. However, we can refer also to South Maui Advisory Committee, correct? Okay, so I guess we might need a motion to do that. And the motion, I think we would want to specify what we would want the South Maui Advisory Committee to review and comment on, with the understanding that if they don't get through everything, then we take what they can do through that time. Is that? Commissioner Lindsay.
So we would start this process, and then they would come in when they come in. After we assign them those sections, will we skip over those sections until they're referred back and then go back to those sections?
I think that's up to us. Commissioner DeCos.
Sure. Thank you. So if we defer, then the clock is still ticking. And what controls the clock? Is that a mandate or what?
2.80B. It's that you have 180 days from when you receive the plan to when you transmit the plan.
Okay.
And there is potential for us, the planning department, to request council for a extension as well, although that is not a preferred way to go. Thank you.
Commissioner Lindsay.
So 180 days from today is November 10th. There was another, just to throw another wrench in there, there was a bunch of requests for the infrastructure report to be included. Where are we there?
We have made a spreadsheet of the CIP actions that are included in the plan and done more accurate estimates for how much they would cost. And it is the department's position that that covers the requirements in 2.80B.
And this is the report that the community members who've been testifying today were referring to.
That is the report to cover what is required. The report that is requested is a larger report that is required in the Maui Island plan.
Okay, let me sit on this for a second.
And I do think we will be posting that document. Thank you.
Do you have a timeline target?
Tomorrow morning.
It's very quick. Thank you. Commissioner Lindsay?
Okay, so I feel like we should see if they can meet. If they can't meet, we should just move forward. We should continue on the 180, just our normal timeline, and give them what we think is achievable. And if it doesn't work out, maybe we will get a new commissioner in 7 weeks. So, and we will have this document. So we have 1.5 of 3. Fair.
Okay. So, Commissioner DeCos?
I agree. There's so many variables that, it's unfortunate. It's out of our control. We're struggling with bare quorum, just trying to get the work we got to get done. And I think, we got to do the best we can. I trust this commission is going to respect the needs and wants of the community and the will of the community. And so I trust if we move forward, we'll represent them well.
Commissioner Lindsay?
I guess something also that one of the testifiers brought up today is not being in the voting zone to be a commissioner of this place. So they, like, if this person who testified, CJ, if he were appointed as a commissioner, but he doesn't live in that area, he wouldn't be considered that. So those kinds of experiences is not included in the code or whatever this is, the charter. I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe we would need a motion to review to the South Maui Advisory Committee while we continue our review. Entertain a motion.
I move to send this to the South Maui Advisory Committee for review, and with the consideration that we need it back in its all parts within 60 days or whatever is assigned. Yep.
Do you need clarification on that?
So not concurrent review, your meetings would stop for those 60 days.
And we will concurrently review the document until it's finished.
Okay, so motion is to refer to South Maui Advisory Committee for 60 days from now to do as much of a review as possible, provide us the recommendation, and we continue our review as scheduled.
To do a review on what we assign or as much as possible.
Okay, do you want to assign a target of what for them to review?
I would put it on the floor for discussion, but right now I'm erring on the side of letting them choose what is more important to them, and then they can come back with those things. I'm not sure if that will help us in our process or not, because they might not finish it.
Okay. Okay, so motion would be to allow, included in the motion would be allowing that body to prioritize which section they review first, second, third, and so on.
Yes, my hesitation there is that we will be finished with a section and then we will have to relook at it. Is that true?
Potentially, depending on our pace and their pace. Commissioner Dicos. So there is a motion on the floor.
Yeah, and maybe, can I ask planning a question? So if you had the choice, if we did it concurrently versus it went to them and then it came to us, I mean, what would be your preference?
Thank you for the question. We do have staffing limitations, so I have not checked in with how regularly our staff's capability to staff concurrent meetings, but we'll of course make every accommodation that we can. I would say that to not slow you folks down is the ultimate goal, and that concurrent review would be our overall preference, and that we understand that this is a priority project for the department and the commission and for the community, and that we would make that call. Yeah, to if you could do concurrent.
Okay, I second the motion.
Okay.
For concurrent.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion?
I think we've discussed it out together, so refer to
the
audio.
Anything from the second? Okay, any discussion from anybody else? All right, so Commissioner Kealoha, do you have any? Okay, can we call for a vote?
Commissioner Kealoha?
Aye.
Commissioner Dicos?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Aye.
Commissioner Hippolito? Vice Chair Thompson?
Aye.
Chair, you have 4 ayes. Chair Thayer.
Yes, I will vote with the majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, you have 5 ayes, 1 excused.
Okay, thank you. And staff, you got all that?
Just going to confirm. Refer review of draft plan to the South Maui Advisory Committee for a concurrent review and a maximum of 60 days to provide a recommendation.
And then, but additional to that, you wanted to allow the South Maui Advisory Committee to pick the parts of the plan they wanted to address.
Yes, understanding that it might not be enough time for them to get through the whole thing, so they can, prioritize their time. Are we good? Okay. Thank you, everybody. So I hope everybody, thank you to the community for speaking up on this. I understand where you're coming from. Yes, I fully believe in community, people's voices getting heard. At the same time, we are working within a designated framework that we just have to operate within. And I'm speaking on behalf of the commission, but please know, community, that we are Maui residents too. And heva'a, hemoku, hemoku, heva'a. The canoe is an island and the island is a canoe, and we are all in this together. And, like has been brought up, we've all spent time here, all throughout our childhood. We are from this island, and we are going to do our best to honor the voices of the community. And, yes, none of us are residents, but I think that gives us an opportunity to review this draft plan as somewhat of a neutral party. And, in a way, we are like the users of what this plan will be. So this is, I hope, would provide the community good feedback on the policies that are in place, how understandable everything is, how usable everything is, because anytime you're writing a document, you have a certain thing in mind, but you need to step back from that and see what is actually written there. It always helps to have a third set of eyes review anything you've written. And so I would like to say to everybody in South Maui that please trust that we all care about this, and we're all going to do the best we can, and we're not trying to close anybody out or shut anybody down, and we're trying to hear everybody. So hopefully you can put your faith in us as a neutral party that cares about everything that goes into this plan. Okay, and with that, we will get back on with reviewing section 1 of the plan framework, unless any other commissioners want to bring anything up first. Okay, so there are a few ways we can go about this, but I don't know. To me, page by page, section by section is going to be the most straightforward and organized way of doing this. And so, anybody? Yeah, so we'll go 1.1, 1.2, and so on. And so anybody have anything on section 1.1? Seeing none? 1.2? Seeing none? 1.3? This starts getting into more meaty content. No? Okay, I have some comments on 1.3, if I may.
Do you want it up on the screen?
Sure.
Like that.
So I see this section as, this is all, background and context, right? This is setting us up for where we are in South Maui today, because we need to know where we've come from to know where we are now. And having, read through the policy framework, I think in speaking about ahupua'a, it might be helpful to include in here that ahupua'a were centered around water sources, because there is a lot of discussion in the policy section about watersheds and gulches and flows, which is all what ahupua'a were, like I said, centered around. So I think it would be helpful to include at least a paragraph to explain that. I think that would tie the rest of the policy provisions back to this.
What page are you thinking of putting this?
Probably between 6 and 7. Because you talk about moku, ahupua'a and moku being land divisions. And I think you have space in here where you can say that ahupua'a were based around a source of water. Like every ahupua'a is effectively a watershed.
So you'd like a sentence just saying that the ahupua'a were essentially watershed?
Well, I think you could expand on that to explain, but to, explain the why. Like they're not just a land division, that's like a color on a map. Like there's a lot of like thought and purpose behind delineating each ahupua'a. Like, there's experts about, who are learned people on this topic.
What sort of direction could we request from the commission on a motion that we could just take back and workshop internally and then maybe return to them with a suggested paragraph at the next meeting? Okay, so it would just be a motion on, or not even a motion, if you just give us more intent, I think staff could be directed to come back at the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, because, a lot of the policies that you lay out, a lot of the issues that are brought up in this plan, stem from and refer back to, how ahupua'a were managed in the past, that, you have upland areas that affect lowland areas, and it's like the water flow from the uplands that are affecting the lowlands. And, this is the whole origin, the whole ahupua'a system is based around the understanding that what happens up Mauka affects what happens Makai, especially as it relates to the flow of water and the source of water that begins up Mauka and then flows Makai.
So you're wanting a paragraph about how the water flow affects the ahupua'a.
It's not how the flow affects. It's how each ahupua'a is identified. Can you help me explain this in other words?
I think ahupua'a were set up around water, so because that is so important in. One of the testifiers today was mentioning how they have big, wide gulches on the top, and then they come narrow to the bottom. And a lot of the testimony actually today was about water and how it impacts that. But it started in the ahupua'a system in Wakahiko. I think if you looked at any of the CIAs in this whole South Maui, I think they will all refer back to that, those waterways coming through, and including the land delineations included water, because as people lived in spaces, they needed water to be there. This is mostly set kind of around plantings and fishing, which is also true, but in order for them to be here, they needed to have water.
I just wanted to mention that we'll take a stab at addressing the Ahupua'a comment that is being raised, but there was extensive discussion about this at CPAC, just largely because, unfortunately, this is the only community plan that cuts the Ahupua'a in half, so they don't have that continuity from up to low, and they largely struggled with trying to contain their comments and recommendation within their respective kuleana of South Maui. But we will try to put together a paragraph to address what you guys are talking about.
I think also it's one of the goals in Section 2, Mauka to Makai watershed management. So in order to clarify that a little bit more, maybe set in context of prehistoric times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
If we could just expand on that and make the connection. There's a lot in here about the fisheries and the fish ponds, but just the water connection beyond, beyond the shoreline. I didn't see that in there. I don't know if that makes sense. So sort of the blood of the island, that connection that creates the nurseries, the fishery, that fuels the fishery with the fresh water. That's an important connection that I don't think came out.
Anybody have anything else in section 1.3?
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Lindsay.
I think also including that it was a wetland, kind of in bold, because that was historic. That's what this area was.
I support that. Yes, and that you could pull from all sorts of CIAs that have been written for this area. And, coming at this from the perspective that this section is like setting up everything you're talking about later in the plan. So just to make sure that your background is thoroughly established for founding the rest of the policies that have been written. I would also like to add around page 12 and 13. Well, in this Western contact section, you talk about, the whaling, the Great Mahele, ranching, the sandalwood trade is mentioned in like 2 sentences, but that went on for a long, long time, and that led to a lot of deforestation, and the rest of the plan talks about like the effects that we're feeling now being a result of deforestation. And I think you could acknowledge that history with a short section of its own for what the sandalwood trade did to the forests around the island. Because that also has precipitated a lot of the problems we're dealing with: erosion and runoff, loss of forests, climate change, etc. Anyone else? 1.3? How about South Maui Today section? Oh. We can go 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I guess on page 20, you bring up in 1979 the construction of future Maui Research and Technology Park. Approval for the project had 4 conditions. The first one being a new source of water for the Kihei Coast. I think it would be valuable to include that history, because that, again, is another thing that drives us to where we are today. To say, you know, that source of water came from Central Maui. Because that's another issue that's brought up elsewhere in this plan. So to give you the, you know, foundation for everything that's discussed later in this plan, that will just give you a more robust context. Commissioner Kealoha, please let us know if you have anything. Yeah, that was the spot, that 1979 paragraph. Moving on to South Maui Today. Comments? I do have a question. If no one else has anything to say at this point, I'll go on. Oh, Commissioner Dikos.
I'm just wondering, in South Maui, I think it's the general plan that talks about an acceptable ratio of visitors to residents. I don't think I saw that in here. Where are we at today with, and what was the plan, and why that's important?
Like the numbers that we are at today noted, the general, or it's the Maui Island plan that says there's a 1/3 visitors to residents.
Yeah, I think it puts into perspective, you know, we often hear a lot about not enough tourism, too much tourism. So there's a balance that the island plan is trying to meet, and where are we with respect to that balance?
I'll let staff catch up. I have a question about this section of all the questions in South Maui Today, starting on page 23. And my question overall for this section is the purpose of the paragraphs following each question, are they to answer the question or are they to flesh out the question?
They are to flesh out the question that the policy should be answering.
Okay. Could there be a preamble to introduce the purpose of these questions? Because just reading through them, some of them sort of answer the question, some of them flesh out the question, some of them do a little bit of both. So just to set up the reader for what this section is doing, have a preamble that says, the following questions flesh out, the issues that the policies will address. But, handhold the reader through what this is doing. Then I have some specific questions on these questions, but I would like to hear from commissioners first. Okay, I'll start. So the second one, how will South Maui ensure adequate services? So this paragraph is talking about water and wastewater. So I would suggest either rephrase the question or revise the paragraph. Because the paragraph talks about water and water consumption. So how will South Maui ensure adequate water service or supply, or if you're talking about all infrastructure?
It's one of the challenging things with this mixture of questions and paragraphs is about half of them were added by the planning department or recommended in the original draft, and the other half were recommended by the Community Plan Advisory Committee.
Okay.
So if there's one direction you'd like us to head in how they are handled, that is probably, if you'd like us to make them so they are fleshing out the problem as opposed to proposing the solution.
I would ask my commissioners. I guess what was the planning department's intent when you drafted this section was to flesh out the issues?
To say where we are today, so then the vision is where we're going in the future.
Okay. Okay, so when you made your draft, the answers to the questions were fleshing out the questions. Is that correct? Or are you answering the questions? Because I was just reading through these and I got stuck halfway through because I was like, some of these are answering the questions and some of these are just further explaining where the question is coming from. And it got confusing going through this. What is the purpose of this section of this plan?
It is to say where we are today. Say, how will South Maui provide? So if you'd like us to add solutions, then that's...
What kind of...
what kind of direction could we take from you folks and rewrite this internally?
Well, so I guess I'm trying to get from the writers of this plan who conceived this approach to laying out this plan, what originally this was meant to do. So this is meant to set up, identify what the issues are so that the policy section solves and addresses those issues. So should these questions be answered here? Because it seems like the answers to the questions are the policies.
Okay, so for one thing, this plan I did not write these questions or the answers, so I can't say the original intent. We can make them so that they answer the questions, and since it does say how will South Maui, that seems like a logical answer to the question. That's if there's a way that would make the most sense to you as the reader, because I've read this plan a lot, so I don't know what to say to it.
Okay.
We can discuss internally and come up with a rewrite, essentially, that identifies issues or is a logical flow towards the policies that are later set up.
I guess you could rephrase the questions, what is South Maui's traffic like? Not to say that that's the question, what is the condition of traffic in South Maui? How connected is our community? How are we transitioning from the COVID pandemic? How are we malamaing our wahikupuna?
Chair.
Yes.
Maybe these just don't need to be questions. Maybe they're just headers. Like we have one, how will never mind. Yeah, I agree. The question, the fact they're questions, it's a little confusing.
I appreciate the use of questions because that makes it more inviting. How will they do this? Let me go read this on and see. But then, that the answer then has to make sense. Yes. Either say a preamble that these are issues being raised that will be addressed later, or
answer the question that's being of the header.
Yes.
But I think regardless, a preamble would just assist in general.
Yes.
So
whichever way you go, a preamble would be helpful.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we come up internally without doing a header, we'll look at that too for what might flow best and get to the intent of the section.
I have a quick comment.
Yes.
Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kilowa, please go ahead.
They're almost like rhetorical questions, but I'm also agree maybe they could be headers. I just have one comment. I don't know, maybe, and it gets changed to a header, but how can South Maui manage a watershed that is not its own? Maybe it should be rephrased since they are part of the watershed, so not entirely its own, or I don't quite know the wording for that, but I understand the intent, but.
Yes, wherever you are in a watershed. We are in a watershed right now. Deputy, you have comments?
Just to, we'll relook at this for clarity. Yeah, thank you for the comment.
And I guess, this is all about content here, but, how will South Maui manage traffic? And then how will South Maui build a complete and connected community? Like, both of these sections talk about complete streets and sidewalks and bicycle pathways. Like, they're both talking about the same things. So either like rephrase them or put them together because they're all related.
Thank you, Chair. We can look at that as well.
And then I guess, being specific. So an example in how can South Maui manage a watershed that's not its own? Midway through it says, however, the political division of the land into districts, you could name that. Are you saying moku is at ahupua'a? It seems like there's something in mind, so like use the actual term that you've already defined earlier on in the plan.
Yes, I think I know what this is implying, but we can be more specific there.
Yeah.
Sorry, for that specific sentence, it's saying the South Maui district as opposed to the Upcountry district. That's the division that's separating the watershed.
Okay. Yeah, if you can spell that out, because, there's all sorts of districts that we have. We have community plan districts and moku that got talked about earlier, and yeah.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Dicos.
Just like complete streets is mentioned a lot here, but I know you have a definitions Appendix D, but there's no real way to know that those definitions exist. I don't know if you want a glossary at the beginning or somehow referencing that. I'm not sure the best way to do that. You have acronyms. Appendix C. Yeah, just like complete streets is not many people may know what that means, and it's mentioned throughout, but just unless you find the appendix at the end, you may be struggling with some of those definitions.
Your recommendation is to put Appendix D definitions further ahead in the plan. Or perhaps like a footnote at the bottom of the page where it's first mentioned, or?
I'm trying to think how it's normally done. I usually I'm used to acronyms that are spelled out, first use, but if you have a concept, if it probably needs a short definition at the beginning when it's first used, I don't know if that's possible.
I'll work with staff on potentially coming up with a footnote situation to where when we first use best management practices or BMPs, having a footnote or some sort of reference that connects the first usage to Appendix D.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's a good idea. Okay, anything else on this section?
Chair. Question.
Yes,
So
Commissioner
these questions at the end, were they just, I guess during the CPAC, there was maybe a list of top priorities and these sort of rose to the top?
This list of questions, the how will South Maui manage? It was in the original plan. I think there were about 6 questions, and then additional ones were added to CPAC as they saw a need to add it to define what was going to be managed.
Okay. Yeah, I just know there's not much on fisheries or coral reefs. I think there's a climate change effects, talks a bit about coastal erosion. But so this is just aligned with previous community plans and the main topics.
This is a whole new thing.
Oh, okay.
So yes, you could suggest adding in a section on nearshore waters, coral reefs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mention of that in the initial part about the abundance of fisheries, but there's really no mention in the Maui Now and moving forward and potentially restoring but if that wasn't a priority, I don't want to stick priorities that aren't from the community.
It's not that it's not a priority, but this is a land use plan. And yes, obviously land use impacts the coral reefs. So it is a question that could be asked, but that's probably why it was not added.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
Commissioner Lindsay.
But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be added because it wasn't there. Because there's so much behind the fisheries and things in the history. I mean, since this is your expertise, possibly including something.
Speak louder.
So possibly including something from would be good, I think, just to include that there's fisheries, there were fish ponds, that was part of the land here. I think they have a special land use there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of the policies, mention coastal water quality and nearshore waters. And so I think, it would make sense to flesh that out as an issue to be addressed, setting up for the policies that come later.
And I understand, there's a whole other department dealing with the land, the marine side of things, but maybe the impacts from land and how they connect to fisheries would be applicable here. So you have mentioned the coastal erosion, but just freshwater connectivity to the ocean, things like that, improving freshwater seeps, those land connections, maybe? No?
How will land management be managed to restore a thriving coral reef? I don't know.
When you deal with the water, yeah. So when you restore water flow and aquifer flow, it directly feeds the fishery and corals, and so there's a connection.
I was just trying to come up with the question that I should write the response to.
Yeah, I see a few questions that we could shoehorn it into, but I think it might have to be its own question. But at least to have a few sentences, whether we pitch it within 2 of the existing questions that I'm looking at for how can South Maui manage its watershed, that it's not its own. We do mention fish ponds, or how will climate change affect the South Maui's future. We can discuss internally, but I think we have it duly noted that you folks do expect some sort of sentence or 2 on more fleshing out of the connectivity and especially fisheries. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's also mentioned with Vahi Kupuna. kind of related to that, I remember reading in some cultural impact assessments for the McKenna area that talked about in the Wakahiko, the source of water for the people in that ahupua'a was the fresh water that seeped into the ocean. And like even in ranching days, there were stories of the cattle being brought to the beach to water them because there was water seeping out at the beach. But then like in the Wakahiko, when people were living there, they would I remember this very clearly, they would take their ipuvai, swim underwater to fill them up with the fresh water that seeped out in the ocean. So it's all very much connected. And, we review projects all the time that talk about coastal water quality. That's a huge, big, fat, giant issue for a lot of projects that hold up a lot of projects that are scrutinized for a lot of projects. And so that should probably be given its own section within this.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Also very appropriate, like in Hawo South Maui, Malama Itwahi Kupuna, I would encourage the use of Olaloa Hawaii words. For example, Lo'i Kalo, Loko I'a, not all, but as many as possible to familiarize everybody with those words.
Yes. I'd say replace shrine.
Yeah, that's what led me there was shrine. I'm not sure if many people know what the definition, Olaloa Hawaii definition is of shrine either.
Good discussion, guys. Thank you. I don't know, sorry if I'm being too nitpicky, but having all so one thing that threw me for a loop reading through this was all these questions that are in South Maui today are all future looking. So which makes me think they're actually looking at South Maui tomorrow. And so if they are looking at South Maui today, then I think they either rephrase to be like, what is the status of this? Or how are we dealing with this?
That seems like the more logical intent.
Okay. Okay, anything else on this section? Or are we ready to move on to our section, South Maui tomorrow, goals. It's the very last page. I guess I have a question for the long range division. The vision, South Maui's vision, this came out of the department or out of the Community Plan Advisory Committee?
The vision came out of the community engagement and then was drafted by the department based on community engagement, and then further refined with community engagement, and then tweaked a little bit by the CPAC.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in comments? Okay. Are we all good? Commissioner Lindsay? Go ahead. Now is the time.
Chair.
Yes.
I have, so if I'm taking into account, sorry about that, testimony and putting it into here today, and I hear, having heard the testimony, a lot of them focused on what we're going to do today, and they didn't voting or not moving forward with this or not. I feel like a lot of the community input could have been, because if they knew we were moving forward, to be focused on this. So also, so I think between applying who did testify about this section and encouraging community engagement, maybe keeping it open, this section, so that community members can actually comment on, who will understand that we are moving forward and comment on this section. Is that something we are planning to do, or does it just close?
So this would remain open, especially since the department will be proposing language for you folks to review and accept, amend, etc. So the comments from you folks are being taken today. We would post our proposal, and the community would be able to comment on this section again and what the department is proposing based off of your feedback.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and to that end, I will note that we have 3 minutes left in this scheduled meeting. So maybe this is a good pausing point. Unless any commissioners have anything else to bring up. Okay, so how does this look like for our next meeting then? We will have Section 1 review still, and Section 2 review still.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay. And then if we get done with that, we can move on to Section 2, the rest of it.
We might post Section 3, I'm not sure. Oh, no, okay. Sorry.
The next meeting is just scheduled to finish Section 2 anyway.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yes. Commissioner Dicos.
And just for those watching, there's testimony at the beginning of every meeting.
Correct.
So they can, if they know what sections we're working on, they could focus their testimony on those sections.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes, and I guess I would like to put that out to everybody online. Everybody is able to provide written testimony, and we're going to go through, the policy section, which everything is numbered and delineated. And so if you have, the more specific your comments are, the better information we have to work with to craft this plan. So please, everybody, if you are writing comments on Facebook, copy and paste those comments into written testimony. They will go a lot farther and have actual strength behind them. So, this all being the case, thank you everybody who testified tonight. Commissioner Lindsay.
Scheduling, because we are bare minimum, I would like to say that I'm not going to be at the July 9th meeting.
Okay.
Just keep that in mind.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you. And our next meeting is in 2 weeks from now. Thank you again, everybody, for your time and bearing with us today. Appreciate all of you very much. With that, our meeting is... Oh, Commissioner Kiloha, do you have something to say? Okay. Corp Counsel, do you have something to say? Okay. All right. Well, it's 8:30 right now, so meeting is adjourned. Thank you again.